Gabi Lombardo is the director of the European Alliance for Social Sciences and Humanities, in brief EASH, the advocacy and science policy organization for these fields in Europe. Gabi is an expert in both higher education and global research policy, and Gabi has worked with the London School of Economics, the European Research Council, and Science Europe. She's joining us now from Brussels. Gabi, thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be part of this event. Thank you.
If we could just briefly introduce us to EASH, for those who do not know the work of EASH, what is really the European Alliance for Social Sciences and Humanities?
Well, the European Alliance is an umbrella organization with over 65 members now. We started with barely 18, only 4 years ago. And we now have 65 members between universities like NTNU and all the members of EASH, Bergen and the Social Science Institute. But also we have European disciplinary associations. About a third are European-wide disciplinary associations like the European Sociological Association, and also some actually are global, like Carmen, the Association of Medievalists.
So how has EASH worked now over the recent years to promote the role and position of social sciences and humanities in Horizon Europe?
The alliance came or emerged like almost a root movement at the time when Horizon 2020 was discussed and was completely missing social science-driven challenge. And so it has already started with a sense of engaging with having this interface between researchers in social science with science policy makers, both at the European level, but also in ministry at the national level for dedicated strategies for social science humanities, also at the national level. And the purpose is to design the investment in future research, education and innovation in line with social science humanities demands or shape and methods of research. We also encourage a lot of our members to engage with the science policy mechanism and work together to make the research result of this community more visible to stakeholders of any kind, NGOs and other organizations, particularly research users in both the public and private funders. We're now actually also getting even more engaged with other platform at continental level in US, Canada, South Africa, really to coordinate an advocacy, but also support for the methods of research in social science and humanities.
So that's a really broad scope of your activities. And if you look now at the start of Horizon Europe, how would you assess the result of this process? Have you succeeded, or what do you think now when you see the Horizon Europe framework program being launched?
Well, as Tobias was saying, we definitely consider Horizon Europe a success story so far. We really had been addressed many of the issues that we addressed over the years for Horizon 2020, which had a very little effect. So once the program started, it's very difficult to change the architecture of the program. We see all the recommendations that we've been making over the years in Horizon 2020 have been trickled down into the framework, at least into the architecture of the program. So things like what Tobias mentioned, panels evaluation, which are broader with more SSH specialities and expertise, or, for example, the criteria in the flag topics that if you do not address social science humanities, you need to explain why you don't. In Horizon 2020, some flag topics had only 30% of projects with social science humanities, which obviously it makes no sense. If it is a requirement, it should be there. So we have been highlighted technical points very clearly, very simplistic, and very straight to the point, and to make improvement. And they seem to have a trickled down both at the level of the technicalities, also the budget. We had a massive role in coordinating the discussion of the Science Council when the budget was discussed at the Council of Europe. And this cluster has the biggest budget that any SSH program ever had in a framework program. So yeah, we're hopeful, but the test will be the implementation. So we're going to carry on monitoring and watching step by step.
Sure that you will keep a good and close eye on them. But you already mentioned a little bit about your recommendations, how to build alliances. But if you could just maybe elaborate a little bit on that, what would be your key recommendations now from ISH to the social science and humanities community right now?
Well, we've been effective because we created critical mass. So one of the major problems and weakness of social science humanities has been scattered around and not having a coherent narrative. With a membership of 65 members, we managed to have at least a strong point, a strong visibility point, and make a coherent set of recommendations which could not be ignored. But also it's important that individual scholars, so this is for institutions and organizations, for individual scholars it's very crucial to engage, not just to apply for funding, which not everybody probably wants to do or will do it, but to contribute with expertise. So sign yourself up as an expert in the database. It's really important. And look at your expertise as a researcher, not simply from your research perspective, but how your research impact on public policy. So get engaged, get involved in the evaluations, in the panels, in the design of the program. And one thing that we're planning to do is also to review the intervention areas of Horizon Europe and the other clusters, and see if some topics that could be flagged for SSH have not been flagged, and change the language of those who have been flagged to allow the people to participate more and better according to their methods and their methodologies and their research questions. So engage,
so, yeah,
get involved.
So get engaged. That's a good recommendation, and I hope that this event will also be a start for that. Gabi, thank you very much. You will also join us for the discussion part. So if you have any questions for Gabi, don't hesitate to ask.